don't want to get your hopes up that you'll get out on time, because the last time you got your hopes up, you had booked this really fun exercise class, and then Mr. Smith had that STEMI and you missed your class, and you wouldn't have relaxed anyway thinking about Mr. Smith. Hello, Dr. Humans, welcome back to the channel and today's video where we will be talking about leaving work on time, whether that's to study for exams or do something that you really enjoy that really fulfills you. Now, I want you to be really honest with yourself here. When I mention leaving work on time, how does that make you feel? Because if it makes you feel even slightly triggered, if it sparks an emotion, then you are the person that I am trying to reach today. You are past Christine, you are past me, and she needed this video more than anyone else on planet Earth. And I know that she would have felt outraged that someone even suggested the ideas that I'm going to be talking about in this video. So if you are feeling that spark of emotion, just stay with me. I think you'll find this very helpful. And of course, this is an important conversation for Dr. Humans at large, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Okay, so as doctors, our working hours can feel at times like a light suggestion. The majority of us will donate some of our time to the cause when we need to, especially in those circumstances where there's an emergency or a patient is sick and they need us. And that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about that chronic, never finishing on time, the kind of chronic that makes you miserable and unhappy. It deprives you of a life outside of medicine. It reduces your ability to study for exams, and it steals something from you. And so today I wanted to talk about some of the reasons why you might be staying late at work and how to get out of there when you're supposed to. And as the queen of not leaving work on time, I have constructed a list of potential scenarios, and I want you just to have a listen to these and see if any of them resonate with you. Reason number one, the hero complex. Feeling that sense of duty. If you're not there, it won't be done properly. Something might happen to the patient. You just can't trust others. This was definitely something I had going on. And I was conditioned to believe this, having worked at various rural hospitals and places that weren't staffed very well, and I felt like I couldn't rely on anyone. If I delegated things would be done poorly. Stories that the ED doctors were telling me were very different from the reality of the patient that I then later went to see. And during that experience, overall, I learned to trust no one. And then I came back to a big centre, a centre of excellence, a tertiary centre where care was a lot more standardised. But despite that, I continued to work under that same belief system of only being able to rely on myself to get the job done. And so even though I was now in a place where there were so many experienced people and capable people around, and my being there or not was not going to be the difference between life or death, I still carried that anxiety with me. And my behaviours very much reflected those anxieties, and I was not leaving work on time. So beware of the hero complex, that feeling of I'm here late to save the day, save the patients, I can't trust anyone except myself. Scenario number two, being overly available after hours. Now, unpredictable things can come up, right? As you're walking out the door, you know, it's hardly Mr. Smith's fault in bed too that he decided to have a STEMI at this hour, right? Just as you got your backpack on. It's not personal, and you like Mr. Smith and you know him well, and you decide to stay while he gets sorted out. Now, this scenario can be incredibly meaningful and beautiful, and it might be the right choice in the moment. I would certainly applaud this on occasion. If your patient is having a STEMI and you just continue to walk to the car park, I guess that's also your choice. But I think most of us would spare Mr. Smith the half hour or so to at least make sure that the other doctors had it covered. But we can also end up in these scenarios where we were supposed to finish an hour ago and we decided to stick around and do one more thing, whatever that thing is, before we go home. But just by being there, the nurses can see you. And so instead of calling the cover, they come right up to you and ask you for something. And in those scenarios, it can be difficult to say no to your colleagues, right? People you work with, you like them. But the truth is, they're supposed to call the cover. That's why the cover is there. And you're not meant to be there at all. You're meant to be at home. And so I want you to think about this in your working day. Are you placing boundaries on your choices around why you're there? And could you make yourself slightly more invisible or less available after your working hours if you do decide to stay and do a few extra things? Just make sure it's on your terms and not anyone else's. And the third scenario is culture. I'm so happy to say that I think this is changing, but I'm willing to bet that there are still cultures which don't respect going home when you're supposed to. I've certainly worked in scenarios where none of my co-registrars took their half day, for example, so I didn't either. Or another example is when there's a culture to not hand over any work that you received during your paid hours. So if you get a call from ED at 4 p.m. with 6 admissions, the culture might be that you have to stay and do all 6 admissions before you leave because you received the phone call. And scenario number 4, short staffing. Sometimes when a colleague is off sick, there's no locum or cover person supplied, and we're expected to absorb that person's workload when they're not there, in addition to our own workload. And that might be okay for a day or, a couple of days at a push. But when there is prolonged understaffing, we can end up suffering through entire rotations where we do a lot more work than is reasonable and we're staying late as a result. Now, there's no right or wrongs here. If you are happy to do those extra hours, I would just recommend that you only do them if you're getting paid for them. Just make sure you're reimbursed. But if you're not happy to do those hours and it goes against your grain and the hours are making you miserable, then you should feel empowered to work the hours that your contract states. And that's it. There is nothing anywhere in your contract that says in the event of understaffing, you're going to have to clone yourself into 2 people all of a sudden. Okay? So the hospital is a system which must be staffed. There are people paid in the hospital to sort that out, and that person is not you. So if you are finding yourself in those situations, I want you to feel empowered to set some boundaries and have assertive conversations when you need to. Okay, that was a little bit heavy, but I meant every word. Now on to scenario number 5. Chasing a finished to-do list. Now this I can relate to fully. Feeling like you want to get it all off your desk. You know that new tasks are going to come up tomorrow and you want to start fresh. You don't want all of this stuff from today being there when you get in the morning. And that's all very nice, but the truth is some things can wait, and tomorrow morning you are going to be fresher than you are right now anyway. There's always something to be done, and so long as the important things are done, that's all that matters. So make sure the nuts and bolts are good, and understand that there will be a rolling to-do list, and that's okay. Do not torture yourself by chasing the impossible dream of a blank to-do list. And last but not least, scenario number 6. Are you avoiding something? Now, this one can run deep and maybe rather triggering, but again, stay with me. Have a listen to this and see if it resonates. Is it possible that you are staying late at work to avoid something else that gives you discomfort? Working as a doctor for the cause, helping people and all that jazz is the ideal excuse to get out of facing so many things in life. So what are you avoiding? What are you running from? Is it studying for exams, the gym, your partner? Did you have a fight last night? The lack of a partner, going back to an empty house, homesickness, that recent breakup? Is it just traffic? You'd rather work for a bit and let the traffic die down. Or could it be that you're avoiding disappointment? You don't want to get your hopes up that you'll get out on time because the last time you got your hopes up, you had booked this really fun exercise class and then Mr. Smith had that STEMI and you missed your class and you wouldn't have relaxed anyway thinking about Mr. Smith and so on and so forth, right? Now, this one is tricky because it requires us to really have a look at ourselves and think about our home life, the decisions we're making. Are we wrapping ourselves in a busy blanket? Okay. What would happen if we took off that busy blanket and had some spare time? Sat in the loneliness, the argument, the self-loathing, the gym, or whatever it is we're supposed to be doing that causes discomfort. Because the truth is that whatever it is that you're avoiding, it's not going away. And on the flip side, how much do you value your spare time and yourself? I've been in situations along the way where I've worked with colleagues who have children. Now, those people know how to get it done and leave on time, right? They can't be doing the self-sacrificing overtime because they have a reason to leave, and that is important to them, and it's their number one priority, right? And even if you don't have children, what about making yourself the number one priority, right? It's so easy to disregard the importance of our own time when we don't have what seems like a valid reason to the rest of the world, like having children, right? We can feel like our time is more flexible or less important somehow when it's just about ourselves. And this can leave us with blurred boundaries between work and home. But I'm going to tell you that prioritizing yourself and your well-being and living a life that feels like a deliberate, conscious choice, as opposed to something you just have to surrender to, is the goal, right? You are important enough to leave work and look after yourself. So those were my top reasons for not leaving work on time as doctors. I hope you found this helpful. I hope I didn't trigger you too much. And maybe with those ideas top of mind, it'll help you to make changes that you need to make in order to get out of work on time in a blissful, guilt-free fashion and start to live life on your terms as opposed to everybody else's. And of course, this is a juicy conversation and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great week. Bye.